Each weekend, ABC 10's Walt Gray catches up with the CalMatters journalists about the biggest political stories of the week. Here's Walt with more.
Welcome to our weekly discussion of all things current in California politics. I'm Walt Gray. Joining us this week is reporter Emily Hoeven, a political expert for CalMatters.org. Emily, welcome back. Good to see you again. We're already talking about conserving water. The governor asked for that, yet more Californians used more water in spite of that. Where does this all stand?
Yeah, it's not looking too good. It's going to be a summer of brown lawns and potentially even water cops coming around because last month Californians actually used about 19% more water than they did in 2020, which is the baseline before the drought started. And as you said, the governor had actually wanted us to all slash our water use by 15%. So we basically did the exact opposite of what he was hoping for. And, not only is this going to increase pressure on the governor to have these statewide mandatory restrictions, it also is putting more pressure on these local governments that right now are kind of in charge of cracking down on this water use. And you're having a lot of angry Californians calling in and saying, my plants are dying, my fish are dying, my lawns are dying, and I have all these big fines that I have to pay. So I think we're going to see even stricter penalties down the pike if we are able to conserve larger amounts of water.
Yeah, so that's all coming up on us this summer. And so is a potential energy shortage. We're trying to do as much solar as we can, conserving as much as we can, but we are facing what people are calling a possible energy shortfall if it gets super hot.
Yeah, so there was, some state officials had somewhat of a sobering outlook recently where they basically said on the hottest days this summer, California could see an energy shortfall that would basically be enough to power between 1.3 million and 3.75 million homes. And, we had those rolling blackouts 2 years ago. Officials have been kind of hoping to avoid that ever since. But I think in a sign of how dire the situation is with our energy outlook, the Newsom administration is considering once again delaying this planned closure of 4 gas-powered plants along the Southern California coast. And he also has expressed openness to keeping open the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant as another source of energy.
Okay, completely different subject matter. An appeals court and people under the age of 21 with assault rifles. Where does this stand in the courts right now?
Yeah, so there was just a recent panel of a federal appeals court that this week ruled that adults under the age of 21, so 18 and up, they do have a constitutional right to bear semi-automatic machine guns and weapons, although they did leave in place another provision of the California law that basically required adults under 21 to have a hunting license if they're going to purchase certain types of rifles or shotguns. So, guns rights advocates declared the ruling a victory because they were able to get that semi-automatic provision back. But at the same time, this panel did keep in place a stricter provision that requires this licensing requirement. And so I think now the ball is kind of back in California and Attorney General Rob Bonta's court as to whether they are going to appeal this panel decision to the full appeals court to potentially have this current ruling overturned.
Yeah, you'd almost think that they have to appeal it. I mean, based on how California approaches gun laws and gun rights. Emily Hoeven, nice to see you again. Thank you as always. CalMatters, a nonpartisan news organization explaining California policies and politics. Find their work at CalMatters.org. You can also sign up for Emily's newsletter there.